Hello, and welcome to another episode of Health Without the System. I'm Dr. Tim Scott.
And I'm Mia Scott, guys. Welcome back for our first-time listeners. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard the crazy train.
Welcome aboard.
Well, this is the first time you guys have heard us mostly recovered from that hellish plague virus.
Yeah, as I just coughed. That took about 18 weeks. That was, or 18 days.
It felt like 18 weeks.
It did. That was probably the most brutal virus we've ever gone through. And then actually after that, my son and I got hit with some weird, GI bug after that. So it's been a wild ride in the house, and we are so ready for May. Although spring is just not really here yet.
Welcome to Ohio.
Yeah.
So this is a cool episode. It's one of them that we mentioned before that we need to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And we finally got around to putting an episode together.
Yeah, we've known about something called the Blue Zones for a very long time because, of course, we're, all about wellness and, good lifestyle and things like that. But there are a ton of people who don't know that there are certain parts or areas in the world that people live much longer. They have less disease. They have better metabolic health. They have more community support. And we'll dive into what that looks like. But they've studied this population for a very long time, and they're one of the most longevity groups of people. And we thought that we would have a podcast to tell you about them. And yes, maybe we're not going to be moving to some of these places, but how do we incorporate their lifestyle into our lifestyle where we live today?
Yeah, I think highlighting these 5 blue zones is kind of cool. They're all in different parts of the world, and there's something unique about each of them. But like you said, it's not just to talk about these blue zones. It's to talk about, okay, this is a unique factor from this one that you can bring back to wherever you live now. And we can talk about the physiology that we see in these blue zones, how it applies to our own bodies. We can do a modern application of it wherever you are at. And, it's not really just like about where they are. It's about what they're doing. It's about how their way of life affects the body and how we can adapt to it. So I think it will be pretty cool.
Yeah, and there are actually books out there that that's how I found this out. I read a book about the blue zones. So educate yourself, and then this would be a quick podcast to have a rundown of them.
Yep, I agree. And, there's some cool things, and we'll kind of go through this when we talk about each zone, but there's actually one zone where there's 10 times more centenarians, people who live to 100 years old, than anywhere else in the world. And then throughout all the zones, we'll see dramatically lower cardiovascular disease, dementia, and metabolic disease. And we talk about dementia being type 3 diabetes a lot, and I think it has to do with their food patterns and lifestyle. But this is a good time to remind you guys, this is probably the 3rd or 4th episode we've mentioned that about 80% of chronic disease is lifestyle driven. So some people will argue, but what about the blue zones, genetics, but it's not really that. I mean, experts suggest genetics contribute 10 to 20%. But remember, environment, epigenetics, the choices you make, genetics load the gun, your environment pulls the trigger. That's 80 to 90% of it. So it's not your DNA, it's your daily input.
Yep.
It's what you do.
Absolutely. So let's rattle off the five blue zones real quick. That way we have them in our mind of what we're going to be doing. First off, Sardinia, Italy. You want to go through the other one?
Okinawa, Japan.
Japan, yep.
Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, which we weren't really that close to when we were there just a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm. The other,
Icaria, Greece.
Yep,
and
Greece and Loma Linda, California.
Yep. So we'll talk about them. I think it's cool.
And, just remember here, it's, longevity isn't about all the things that we can do more and more and more. It's more of like, what can we remove in our daily life that is breaking us? And you can find, as we start rattling off of some of these things, remind yourself as you're listening to this podcast, okay, do I do those things? Or am I way far off? Or do I eat like this? Or am I way far off? And those are things that we can slowly start to change to live longer, healthier lives without it being such a dramatic, hard thing to incorporate.
Agreed. So as we go through these blue zones, you'll notice 4 of the 5 are essentially either an island or one's a peninsula, so covered on 3 sides by water. The 5th one in Loma Linda, California is actually not connected to the water, but I think it's kind of cool noticing how all of these are by water and how much that can kind of play into the way of life as well, which kind of stinks for us. We're in the Midwest. I mean, we are by the Great Lakes, but I don't know if that counts.
No, I don't think we're breaking, 100-year-old records in the old T-town of Ohio. No.
All right. So the first one, Sardinia. This is in Italy. It's a little island southwest of Rome, northwest of Sicily. out there in the ocean. And I like this one. It's cool. It's actually a male longevity hotspot. They say it's because of a rare genetic like quirk or polymorphism carried by the inhabitants. The M26 marker is linked to this exceptional longevity. So there is a genetic component, don't get me wrong. And due to geographic isolation, the genes of the residents in this area of Sardinia have remained mostly undiluted over time. The result, nearly 10 times more centenarians per capita than the United States, which I think is kind of cool. But it's not just that. It's their way of life. So what is Sardinia like?
Well, they have to do a lot of uphill walking.
Yeah, it's like
hard.
all day, every day.
They call
walk
it
uphill.
shepherding. So yeah, basically it's like hiking wherever they're going every single day. Hills, farming, manual work. It's not just workouts. They're not like, hey, I'm going to the gym. I mean, maybe some are, but this is just their day-to-day built-in movement that they just, smooth sail throughout the day.
I agree. Their life, the work is incorporated into their lifestyle and it revolves around movement, and there is a lot of uphill walking. And so think of, instead of a sedentary lifestyle, they are almost a non-stop lifestyle. They're always carrying, climbing, standing up. They're always having muscle resistance. And there's movement, every 20 to 30 minutes. I mean, if you look at the residents and their habitual patterns, 2 times an hour on average, they're doing this some sort of aerobic cardiovascular muscle resistance activity.
Yep. So like I said, it's not like they're necessarily exercising. Like I'm going to go exercise. It's like every single day their life is exercise.
And they're never stop moving. And I think that can be incorporated into everybody's life when you just think, okay, how do I increase my movement? So
next, they have a very strong family structure. So multi-generational households. It's that their own community within the family. They have very clear roles, daily interaction, tightly family bonded units. So, they have purpose. They feel like every single day they wake up, they are serving their family serving them. It's, emotional stability, daily connection, things that we know and studies show that you can live longer with these connections. So longevity is a team sport.
Yeah, sort of that core of health. We talk about functional medicine and we use this matrix model, and at the center of the matrix is the emotional, spiritual, social network. And we talk about how important that is. And in functional medicine, we're taught to look at that on every single patient, and we try to pass that information on to you guys. Things that some people might consider woo-woo or fluff or anything. It's real. Like your relationships, your connections, your family support. Maybe it's friends. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood family, but it's that connection in that community. And Sardinia is big for that.
Yeah.
So you guys know I love to talk physiology.
Sure.
Let's
go ahead.
just
dive in.
move that in just a little bit. So the frequent movement, right? So
happens?
we've talked about this transporter before, but it's called the GLUT4 transporter, and that's what helps get glucose across the cell membranes, especially in muscle. Constant movement keeps those muscles pulling glucose out of the bloodstream without needing insulin to do it. We've talked about this. So from a physiologic standpoint, I want you guys to remember that muscle is responsible for 85% of non-insulin dependent glucose uptake from the bloodstream. It does not need the insulin signal. So that means you eat a big meal and you move your muscles, they're immediately pulling that glucose out of the bloodstream, and it prevents what's called a postprandial spike in blood sugar. You want that. You don't want a big postprandial spike. And it also reduces the amount of insulin that your body would need to get that glucose out of the blood. So that frequent movement activates the GLUT4 and helps keep a better baseline glycemic control.
Next, they are very low sedentary time, meaning that they're constantly moving. They're not just sitting and they don't have a lot of downtime. So what does this impact? Well, the first and foremost, mitochondria, which you hear us talk about all the time. So the more active and moving you are, the higher the mitochondrial can be. They just run more efficient. So low regular like let's say you were low activity, not doing very much. You can basically have a decrease of efficiency with this. So they're constantly moving, therefore their mitochondria is constantly getting stimulated to work more efficiently. So, as we know, it's powerhouse of cells. We absolutely need a good powerhouse of our cells, or we're going to feel like crap.
And I think a lot of people don't know that your mitochondria can actually be like teeny tiny, not real good, or real big and real efficient, almost like muscle. Your mitochondria will shrink and expand. So the more metabolically active you are, and what's the word, like energetically active, the more you move and stuff, your mitochondria will grow so that they can produce more energy and become more efficient. And that is part of what Mia was saying.
Even at low level activity, if you're constantly being active. So we're talking about like the couch potatoes, this isn't going to happen. But we're also not, you don't have to go out and work vigorous activity all day. We're just saying even low level activity throughout the day is going to stimulate that mitochondria being more efficient.
Agreed.
Next, like we talked about, family connection.
And the
Huge.
low reduction of cortisol levels.
So the more that you're out around family, now I will say that probably some of this are like, oh, well, my family makes me stressed out. So I guess if you like your family and your family is a calming source for you, then that would be good. But if you guys, not in a good relationship with your family, then cortisol is
maybe
going to go
consider
up.
friends instead. Okay, so that was Sardinia, Italy. You've got the male centenarians, a lot of movement, good social structure, really cool culture there on the bucket list. The next one, Okinawa, Japan. So this is an island way south of the mainland, out there in the ocean, kind of by itself. So the unique kind of thing here is that their culture is sort of built around stopping eating before they're full. It's called, I know you're going to make me say this.
I have no idea how to say it.
Harahachibu. Eat
That's
to 80%.
Probably what I was going to say.
Harahachibu.
That sounds about right.
I don't speak Japanese. I'm sorry. But anyway, that's basically this idea of stopping, when you're just no longer hungry, not when you feel full.
Yep. Which is, people are like, well, what's the difference? Well, when you're eating your plate of food, like try to slow down. Number one, that always should be first and foremost. Slow down, mindful
masticate,
eating,
chew.
mindful chewing.
Yeah.
And then once you get to my stomach no longer is telling me that I'm starving or hungry, stop eating. Even if it's half of your dinner. I have been much more aware of this where like if you have a meal and you're socializing, and I will way overeat if I'm socializing. And let's be honest, I'm not restricting food, but then I feel terrible because my stomach is not used to so much food. So just going back to the basics of like listening to your body, quieting your mind as you're eating, stop when you feel like you no longer have those hunger cues. And it should be less than 80% or, close to 80% of what your
what you think
is
max. You should definitely be at 80 or less. And this creates a natural caloric moderation. So obviously you're going to consume less calories when you stop earlier.
Yeah.
But also better satiety signaling. God, I hate that word so much.
I just say satiety.
It's better satiety signaling. Like
one.
leptin. So leptin is a hormone in your body that tells you you're full. You can have leptin resistance just like you can have insulin resistance. And that means that even though you're cranking out leptin, if you're resistant to it, you can't tell that you're full. Yeah. So this actually increases your leptin sensitivity by eating less.
So leave the table comfortable, not full, not stuffed. Don't overdo it. Makes a big difference and will prolong your life.
Yep. And also one other thing, when you consume a little bit less and get a less postprandial spike, it reduces that post-meal crash or fatigue that our culture experiences in the afternoon quite a bit.
Yep. They also have things called social pods, and these are lifelong little small groups that they meet regularly for support.
I think that's so cool.
Connection.
Like they just have this social pod, and it's just you just do it. It's part of their life there.
And of course, this is emotional resilience. This is accountability. This is a sense of belonging, that communal support. My husband and I were just talking about, we've been living at this farm for however many years, and we've met like not very many neighbors, and a lot of them are younger. And we're like, we're going to make a point this year to be more social, to like make time so we know the community and like get out more. And it really does make a difference on, your sense of being and, place in life. It's life-changing.
Yep. Okay, so jumping into a little physiology here. So the caloric moderation we talked about, you've heard us mention in some of our other episodes. I like to get into cellular signaling. There's something called mTOR and AMPK. These are different signaling genes that can turn on and off other processes. mTOR is big with some of your mitochondrial health as well. But eating slightly less consistently shifts the body more towards repair and longevity pathways rather than muscle breakdown, less efficient metabolism and things that can actually reduce the lifespan. Mm-hmm. Lower insulin levels will actually increase your fatty oxidation. So it allows the body to burn fat instead of storing it, which is kind of cool.
Yep. Lower insulin allows your body to burn fat. Exactly. So that's the goal. Remember, insulin is great, but it's very balanced and it can be very toxic to the body.
Yeah,
so
it's like you need it, but you need it, but you don't really want to have a lot of it.
It's like it's an in and out. Like do your job and get out, get back to where
with as little of it as possible.
Yep, absolutely. And then the social buffering decreases sympathetic tone.
We've talked about that in many podcasts, sympathetic versus parasympathetic.
Yeah, strong relationships keep the nervous system out of that fight or flight. It keeps them emotionally regulated. It's stable, decreased cortisol as well with that one.
Fight or flight is sympathetic tone. You want your body to live a little bit more on the parasympathetic. Your rest and digest, your relax. That's where you'd like to be.
Yep. Next up, the one in Costa Rica.
Nicoya Peninsula.
Yeah. How far away was that from where we went? Costa Rica?
So
We
that
looked
is
it
in the northwest area of Costa Rica at the top. If anyone knows like Guanacaste province, we were like more in the middle of the country in south this time, so we were a ways away. Yeah.
I would have loved to go visit them. But anyway, one day we'll put
We'll
it on
plan
our
it
bucket list.
sometime.
Yep.
Yep.
So they very busy as well. So
They have
major sense of
the
community.
Plana de Vida, the purpose-driven life there,
Mm-hmm.
so is what they're known for.
Yep, very strong sense of why they wake up, tied to a family connection or contribution. They, daily motion as well, constantly moving. A lot of them have the farms as well, and making their own food. And they basically just wake up to live on their farm, take care of their family, and go to bed. Mental resilience, lower depression rates. And Tim and I saw this when we went to Costa Rica. Like I said, this wasn't where we went, but we went to visit and kind of tour a family that it was a mom and she was older. She was 90s.
Yeah, she was old.
She was in her
He
90s
was
and
old.
her son, they all lived on this plot and her sons were still living like on the same farm and their kids, and
Multi-generational farm.
it was just
yeah.
so cool. And they would wake up and they'd have their chickens and their cattle and they would just live off the land. Their life purpose was just family and living every day. It's
Yeah, it was really
so
cool.
cool.
Another thing that's noticeable about this particular zone was sunlight. And, we do talk about the importance of sunlight quite a bit. They're in the sun all the time, outdoor work. We might not be able to do that in the Midwest or wherever you're listening from, but there are ways you can still improve it and be intentional about getting things like morning sun, making a point to get safe sun in the summer. Like I don't want anyone going out and burning their skin and leading to skin cancer later. But sunlight we've talked about improves the circadian rhythm. Obviously vitamin D. Guys, remember when you get your vitamin D levels checked, the lab's going to tell you that 30 is you're okay. If it's above 30, they're like, cool. We are here to remind you that we would like that number to be more like 60 to 70 in most people. So,
Yeah.
And this, of course, also the circadian rhythms in the sun with better vitamin D and effects of the pineal gland are going to help with sleep. We have a
And
whole
mood,
podcast on
and
sleep.
immunity,
We've talked about how important
and
that is.
bone and all the things that they need.
kinda-
So back to them,
yeah.
purpose, sunlight, and then the mineral intake because they are just constantly, living off their soil, eating off
Yeah.
the land.
It's good
nutrient
dirt.
dense foods,
Yeah.
and we experience all that. And they're not afraid of dirt. We literally made these tortilla shell type things in their hut. And we were walking on dirt floor. It was
Yeah.
they
She
but they're
sweeps the dirt
so
floor. Yeah.
healthy, but it was so compact.
Yeah.
Where it was like a concrete dirt floor. And Tim looks over and he goes, "Is she sweeping the dirt floor?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
She's
she
cleaning
is.
up.
She's
Yeah.
quite literally sweeping her dirt floor.
Yeah.
But she wasn't mopping it, so we're good."
Yep. And this area has one of the lowest middle age mortality rates in the world, which I think is kind of cool. It's like you're just not often from that stress heart attack in the middle of life. Suicide rates are
Yeah.
lower. It's just insane.
Yep.
But- okay,
Next
on
up,
to Greece, Icaria. So this is another island. It's southeast of the mainland of Greece, and if you look at it on the map, you're very close to Turkey. That's how far east it is. So this one would be the ideal for most people, right?
Rest.
Daily naps.
Yep, they
slow
do
life.
a little bit more of a slower life living. Rest is basically normalized, not seen as laziness. They have better, which of course is going to lead to better recovery, lower stress states, and then more parasympathetic tone. So they don't necessarily like grind like some of these other ones. They're a little bit more recovered, but they eat very big anti-inflammatory diets, herbs, lots of olive oil and polyphenols and nutrients and antioxidants, and they eat the rainbow and all the things that we tell our patients every single appointment to make sure that you're doing Eat the Rainbow, and we're not talking about Skittles. So,
Yeah, and this is a good spot to talk about diet for a minute. One of the conversations I have with every metabolic or weight management patient when I start with is I'll often say like, hey, people ask me, Dr. Scott, what do you think's the best diet to be on? Like ketogenic, Atkins, whatever. We don't have one, but I would say we lean Mediterranean. Mediterranean diets are very high in omega-3s, low in omega-6s, which are some of those inflammatory fatty acids.
and low in processed.
And very low in processed foods. And I think it's important, like what Mia said, understand that, try to live that. Don't be afraid of your good fats, your olive oil, your whole milk, things like that. Be afraid of the processed foods, all the omega-6s, the seed oils, and all the fillers that come in the processed stuff. The other thing is, I completely lost my train of thought on food. Oh, you just mentioned, I'm sorry, Eat the Rainbow. That's the other thing is phytonutrients. So herbs, fruits, and vegetables, every color is a nutrient, right? And you can go through these lists, look them up. We have a really cool phytonutrient spectrum sheet that was created by Institute of Functional Medicine. It's so cool to look through the different colors and all the things that are associated with that.
And some overlap, but moral of the story, different groups do different things. Like maybe your greens, maybe they're more anti-cancerous and antioxidant, and it overlaps with blackberries and all the deep, very deep, colorful vegetables or fruits that are going to be more antioxidant and things like that. So the sheet is amazing, but moral of the story, when you go to the grocery store, just making sure that you're eating an abundance of color, and the less processed the better. So majority of your shopping should happen out in the outside aisles where it's produce and some are your like beverages or whatever that you need, but majority of your food should come from produce. And then the rest can be, supplemented in. Is it quinoa, which is actually decently high in protein, very good fiber, which is great for our gut microbiome. And you can piece together quite literally medicine. And this is what we talk about to our patients all the time. I had a patient the other day, a couple days ago, she had a sluggish thyroid. We were talking about supplements that we can use as support. And I'm like, but also you can have a few Brazil nuts every day. It's very high in selenium, great for supporting your thyroid. You can eat more oysters and things that are high in zinc for that conversion. Like you don't have to worry about like multi-pharmaceuticals if you're eating your medicine. Also with the Brazil nuts, the studies show that with the standard dose of lisinopril, it had the same blood pressure lowering effects as a few Brazil nuts as medicine.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is. It's
so
crazy.
I want Meredith to link. I'm going to send her this PDF.
Yeah.
Guys, if you can check this out, I want you guys to check out this PDF. We're going to attach it. But for example, the first thing, it's a 28-page PDF, and it says touring the phytonutrient food list, and it starts with red. And it gives you, just a ton of different foods that are red, talks about all the different things. For example, anthocyanins, astaxanthin, which is a very well-known anti-inflammatory.
It's one of the biggest antioxidants,
carotenoids, elegotannins, flavonols, etc. So that's just a few. Lycopene. And then it goes through and it talks about, lycopene is a red colored phytonutrient. Add fresh tomatoes, goji berries, and raspberries to different foods. This is how food can be medicine. And like Mia said, there is for sure some overlap, but you move on to orange next. Completely different compounds, alpha carotene, beta carotene. Now carotenoids show up again, but now curcuminoids start to show up. So anyway, really cool stuff.
And we don't expect you to memorize this.
No,
but
I
if
can't
somebody
memorize
is
this,
suffering from something, you can straight go to some of these things of maybe it's an anti-inflammatory or a gut support or whatever, and you can choose the foods to eat in density to support whatever you're dealing with. For example, what lowers prostate cancer? Lycopene, which is high in the tomatoes and watermelon and some other things. So like you can, if somebody is dealing with that, you can quite literally boost things in your body with food that you eat.
Yeah. And you got
to eat anyway,
Agreed. This one's kind of cool. So I'm in the yellow food category. So it talks about some of the compounds, but it lists benefits: anti-inflammatory, cell protection, digestive health, eye health, heart health. So you're like, okay, I'm worried about eyes, macular degeneration in my family. I make it a point to get some yellow foods in my diet. Am I sitting here saying this is going to prevent vision loss or change? No, maybe not.
But the more that you eat like this, the less disease process you guys are going to have. And that's our goal, is to stay away from processed food. Shop in the inner eye or the outer aisles, get your produce, and then go from there. So I encourage everybody to check out that guide. It really is beneficial. It's overwhelming at first, and if you don't know what some of these words are, just a straight Google search to start. The more you look at that guide and the colorful things that you can do, the better that you can support your body. Screenshot it, grocery shop with it, change your life with food.
Agreed. And to kind of support what we've said, 1 in 3 people in Icaria, Greece live to their 90s. 33% of the population. That's just nuts. Real quick,
That's so cool.
So physiology from Icaria and some of the things we talked about: napping, reduction of cortisol, increased parasympathetic tone. We've already explained that. Polyphenols, so these compounds that you'll find in nutrient-dense foods. Decrease NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is your major inflammatory signaling molecule in your body. It turns on lots of other inflammation signals. When you are taking steroids for an illness like prednisone or Decadron, it works very high upstream and actually blocks NF-kappa B, and that blocks a ton of other downstream inflammatory signals. Imagine if you can do that naturally with polyphenols.
Right. like sulforaphanes that boost
Ooh,
your
yeah.
the antioxidant profile, super nutrient dense, wonderful for the NFR2 pathway and not increasing that, which is basically the opposite of the NF kappa B. So once again, eat your medicine. I tell everybody every day.
Agreed. All right, let's get to the fifth and final zone we're going through real quick.
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda. So this is in California. It's east of LA, and this one is not really surrounded by water. I mean, it's not very far for them to get to the ocean, but
Yeah. They are a lot more like of a faith-based routine. They have a very structured weekly rest or the Sabbath, and then a very strong belief system. So they believe leading to like build in rest reduction, weekly resets, community bonding, and then of course that major strong religious component to it.
yeah, I think it's crazy that this is in our own country, and I've never been there, but
Yeah.
they have really clean living standards
Very,
there.
yeah.
There's not a lot of smoking. There's not a lot of alcohol consumption, a
Mhm.
lot of whole foods, whole nutrient dense foods. This is going to reduce your toxic load, lower your oxidative stress.
They do a lot of
All the
gardening
things
and
we've
stuff
talked
there
about.
as well. And obviously, it's beautiful in California. The weather, the sun shining at 75 and sunny. I'd probably live longer living there too. But they are very, once again, rooted in that community bonding, religious, and then they are active in the gardening and stuff too, given their state.
Yeah, and this one's kind of cool because I think I mean, I'm sure all of the blue zones have reduced toxins, but this one specifically kind of focuses on that really clean lifestyle. So they're avoiding these harmful exposures. They lower cellular damage, inflammation, like we just talked about. Oxidative stress is what kills mitochondrial efficiency and leads to aging. So I think that's kind of cool. And then the other, like the faith community aspect that they live there, increases oxytocin, and we haven't mentioned that one yet.
Yeah, and that's like a feel good hormone. So that stimulates, and then of course decrease your cortisol. So spiritual, social practices regulate stress hormones and their emotional health. So very, very supportive community. And that's the one thing that I feel like that this, which we'll get into, they just all have that supportive and good food.
Yeah. The men there live on average 7 to 10 years longer than other men in the US. I'd have to look at that study a little deeper. That's just a quick stat that I
I mean,
pulled.
that's pretty
But I
big.
still think that's interesting.
Yeah.
And, I don't know the whole data around that. But even if that's remotely true, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So every blue zone is different, on the surface, but underneath they all help regulate the same systems that we talk about every week on this podcast. That's metabolism, that's inflammation, that's stress, and that human connection that you need. So
Agreed.
what are some of the
Yeah.
chronic or common threads together?
Yeah. So first off, low chronic stress in these blue zones, right? We've said it before. This is incredibly important. Lower cortisol levels can, amongst other things, lead to lower insulin resistance. Chronic cortisol is going to drive that hepatic glucose output, blunt your insulin signaling, and that's going to lead to cortisol-induced insulin resistance and weight gain. Add that on top of diet, and other sedentary lifestyle and other factors in the US, and it's just one issue. You're also lower chronic stress is going to help have decreased visceral fat. Visceral fat is the harmful fat around your organs. Cortisol preferentially deposits fat in those areas via the glucocorticoid receptors.
It's a
Also,
very dangerous, deadly fat, the visceral fat that he's talking about.
yep, that's the kind that causes problems.
Yep.
Also in the blue zones, you'll notice if you dig deep into their medical data that they have much lower rates of thyroid suppression, aka better thyroid health, amongst other things. We know that high cortisol reduces that T4 inactive or storage thyroid hormone to T3 active thyroid conversion and cellular thyroid signaling.
Stress and inflammation are the number one things that make your thyroid dysregulated. But also,
Just
like
take a
Tim-
thyroid supplement, right?
Yeah, that like I said, I tell this to my patients all the time. You'll never supplement yourself out of a crappy lifestyle. So yes, I will absolutely give you a supplement to help you feel better. But I'm not just throwing a pill for an ill. Like we gotta correct these root causes because no supplement, if you're still doing the same thing every day, you're super high stressed, or maybe you're eating so crappy that you're constantly spitting out those inflammatory markers or the cytokines that are pissing off your body, you're going to have dysregulation. Like your body runs in, as a whole, and it will act as such.
So reviewing the common threads of the blue zones, we just went over low chronic stress. That's a big one. So we need to try to reduce stress in our lives. Number 2, natural movement.
Yep. So the how they don't work out, but they lose, they don't lose muscle rapidly either because they're constantly doing that frequent daily loading on their muscles. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back to our muscle podcast, but that preserves the muscle without the formal training. Like these people in these zone, I mean, maybe some of them are weightlifting, but they're not like bench pressing. They're
Yeah,
out
it's not like
doing their
gyms
own
don't
things.
exist
Yeah.
there, but
But they're out doing their own things like, maybe it's equipment or dirt or shoveling or gardening or logging or whatever the case may be. They're picking up, bending down, they have a load, and they're putting that resistance on their muscles.
yeah. So one of the modern problems in the United States is sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass. And it's very common as we age. Our lifestyles become more sedentary, years of crappy eating. Guess what? Hormones, both men
peri
and
and
women.
post-
Yeah.
Perimenopause, you'll start decreasing bone density and muscle mass year after year if you don't actively try to preserve that.
Agreed. And our men have lower hormone levels than 50 years ago by far. So anyway, these other countries, they're eating clean, they're preserving their bodies, they're reduced oxidative stress. The sarcopenia doesn't exist like it did here. And guess what? This is another thing I tell every single patient when I have my initial weight management call with them. I say, if you take nothing else from this call today, I say this like 2 or 3 times, but that's it.
If you don't take it,
But I
just
say,
remember
if you
everything.
take nothing else from this call today, please remember the importance of muscle mass throughout your life. And what you do in your 20s, 30s, and 40s affects what life is going to be for you in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And muscle is the key to that. So that's one of the main reasons you'll see in this.
Yep. So, like going back to that, muscle glucose sink, it's going to be the first major site of insulin mediated glucose disposal, like Tim said. And then it's your metabolic rate. The more muscle mass you have on your body, the more calories you burn at rest. So, if me and somebody else are sitting in a room and I have more muscle mass than that person, I am burning more calories at rest. That is our goal. Allow your body to work for you while you're not actually working out, because who doesn't want to burn more calories sitting there watching TV? That is our end goal, stability, and that happens with muscle mass. And then, of course, like Tim said, also, it's a hormone stabilizer. It will improve insulin, testosterone, and balance out inflammation signals.
Yeah, so we have a couple cool episodes you guys should go back and check out. Season 2, episode 33 was, I don't know, a couple months ago, and we went into macro metabolism and the difference in what your body does with protein, fats, and carbohydrates and how that can affect muscle. And then all the way back to to episode 8, season 1, muscle mass. Check it out.
It was that
Really
long
good
ago?
episode. It was a long time ago. Very important.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, sorry. So did you talk about lifting and prioritizing protein?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Did you
no,
say,
I didn't.
Just say, okay,
no,
sorry.
you guys
I was
should be
looking for the old episode and wasn't listening to you.
lifting 2 to 4 times a week. What's new? Lifting 2 to 4 times a week. This is intentional overload, which basically means that once you become like status quo with that same weight that you've been doing for however many weeks, then you need to continue to build those weights. Not those little foo-foo 2-pounders that I'm talking about. And listen, don't go out and hurt yourself. But for my elderly females, like, you can lift more, I promise you. So start with your 2-pounders if that's all you can do. Give it a couple weeks, and then you're graduating from those 2-pounders. That is that progressive overload that you constantly want to give your body, because your body needs a stress and then it adapts. And if you don't stress it again and you stay at that adaptation state with the same pounders that you've been, using, and you're not challenging your body, you're not going to grow that muscle mass. So,
And what
very
feeds?
important. Protein.
Okay, thank you.
Eat your protein.
If you take nothing else away from this, aim for 100 grams a day of protein. More is better, but at least start with 100. If you don't track protein, you're going to realize really quickly it's kind of hard to get to 100 grams of protein if you're not a protein eater.
And the
This
older you
applies to
get-
all of our audience. I'm sorry, you need the protein.
The older you get, the harder it is to consume that protein. So move your body protein forward. And once again, we're not becoming obsessive. You do not need to be obsessive and track your scales, but
No.
monitor it for a few days. Or
Learn
weeks
what
or
it
months.
looks like.
Exactly. Understand what a good day of protein looks like, what a good day of non-processed food looks like. Repeat those days, repeat those meals, lifestyle change, boom, you don't have to count
When
it.
you spend 1 to 2 weeks tracking, you literally don't need to do it anymore. I mean, new foods, yes, you need to commit to memory. But for example, I know every egg that I eat is 6 grams of protein. If I have an organic mozzarella cheese stick, it's 6 grams of 6 grams of protein. Beef sticks are generally about 10 grams of protein, 4 ounces of
chomps,
yep.
yeah.
So anyway, my point is I can very easily walk through my day and know how many grams I'm at. It didn't take me very long to get to that.
My tuna salad today was 42 grams of protein.
That
I
can
mean,
is of the Safe
it's
Catch
amazing.
tunas,
And
yeah.
then when I didn't have hard-boiled eggs, but if you have hard-boiled eggs, you can add them in there and easily get a 55 to 60 gram protein meal bomb.
Boom.
Can't beat it.
Love it. I have a question for you. How do we have 2 outdoor cats and I'm scraping cat hair off the couch next to me?
Because they're not outdoor. You know this. You've lived here long enough. We are supposed to have 2 outdoor cats, but Bourbon is too old to go outside anymore. We got coyotes, and she does not like to go outside. And then Willie strolled up on our door, and he just won't leave, and he wanders in and out.
Well, he would
And
leave
my
if
husband's
we
like
made him.
supposedly allergic. He keeps telling me that he's allergic. I don't buy it. I think it's just a cop out to get him out of the house. But
Anyway, so we went over stress, we went over natural movement, which correlates with muscle and protein. Let's talk about simple food. We won't spend too much time on this, but whole, unprocessed, fewer additives equal less metabolic and gut disruption. Please remember that while we talk about fat, calories, and all this stuff, your gut is important, and processed food destroys your gut. Binders, emulsifiers, anti-caking agents, gums, processed, not the preservatives, all of it.
Yeah.
Seed oils, inflammatory, ruins your gut, leads to leaky gut. We've talked about all the problems from that.
yeah,
So please
think
eat real food.
And I was talking to a patient the other day. I don't even know what brought up this example, but I'm like, imagine if you were to go take whatever meal that you thought that you were about to eat and go bury it. And if you can go back to that a year later and it's still edible in the package and it's not molded, then that's too processed. And think about how many foods that we can do that. All of your protein, your high protein candy bars and anything that's packaged and processed, you could quite literally go bury it in your yard and eat it next year. Like that's just too processed.
Yeah.
Back to the basics.
I've
Sourdough molds in 3 days.
Yeah,
on
I've
the
had
counter.
certain people tell me like they don't buy certain fruits or vegetables because it rots too quickly, and I'm like, you
That's
want
good.
that?
You just
you
need to
want
eat
that?
more of
Yeah,
it,
eat
right.
it quick.
Like
Buy
what-
less, eat
Right.
more.
And what did you eat that your
Make it a-
vegetables went bad?
I know it's very hard, but make it a point to go to the store twice a week if you have to keep fresh foods
Do
around.
a
Like
quick
yeah.
list where it's only a couple bucks if you do their yearly membership for shipping. So, those are areas that we get. Life is crazy, and we're talking about all the things that you can do because you don't have to live in these zones to mimic their lifestyle.
You really don't.
and that is
No.
the entire.
It might
goal
not
of
be
this
as warm.
podcast.
It might not be as beautiful, but
Yeah.
you can still replicate the things that are keeping these people healthy and alive longer.
Yeah, you might have to get a sauna and close your eyes and pretend that you're on a beach and it's 70 degrees, but hey,
Whatever.
Your mind's a
And
powerful place.
Let's remember one of the other things about eating real, whole, nutrient-dense foods, lower sugar spikes. We've said it a couple times this episode. You want that postprandial blood sugar to stay low. You don't want big jumps after meals. If you haven't done a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, give it a try. It's been a few episodes since we mentioned it, but Mia's talked about
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm hiccuping. Mia's talked about it a few times, and it can be really eye-opening if you've never paid attention to what your blood glucose does with food.
Because different foods respond versus a different person. So, for example, rice impacted me significantly different than it impacted Tim.
Yeah.
So, your body responds very differently than somebody else, and it's really good to know your body and the way it responds to foods that it might not like. Me is white rice, no good.
I wonder if our audience is getting used to Mia-isms by now. Like when you're trying to say words and they just come out completely
Jumbled.
not in a sentence that
Yeah.
makes.
Well, it's also once again late in the day because my goodness, we can
And
never
I'm
do this
hungry.
first thing in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, we've some of the physiology around real foods I already mentioned. Let me just recap it real quickly. Advanced glycated end products. I've talked about this in the past. That's your the IFM doctor always said, the sticky buns, the fried foods, the donuts, all that kind of stuff. Less glycation, the better. It's less oxidative stress, less vascular damage. Endotoxins, so lipopolysaccharides from foods. You do not want these getting into your bloodstream. The more gut disruption you have, the more leaky gut you have, the more inflammation along the gut wall lets more of these endotoxins enter your bloodstream.
Which means potential autoimmunity.
That's the further downstream effect. And then, of course, inflammation. So eating to reduce inflammation instead of to cause it. All right. So number 4, again, a common thread in all these is community. We've mentioned this briefly. Let's run through it one more time.
Yep. Loneliness equals a mortality risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That is wild. And they actually linked this to when they did COVID studies to increase stress and isolation. You were greater to die of one of those issues than you were COVID because of the stress that it allowed to impact your body, the inflammatory response, the cortisol release, the cytokines that released, and then the isolation. So once again, your body is a very powerful thing. And if you lack the community or if you lack that loneliness or if you have that loneliness component to it, those are all going to put you at greater risk factors.
Am I allowed to say bad things about the person that rhymes with couchy?
Yeah. Maybe we should just say Couchy.
Stinking Couchy and all the things he did during COVID.
Yeah, you guys should read the book Exposing Dr. Couchy. It will. I was so
Will we
mad
still
at that
get banned for that word?
I don't
now?
know.
mean,
I don't know. Is he even alive? I know. I definitely.
I
I think
so.
they put him on an island and paid him a lump sum and said, "Don't ever show your face on TV again." But that book will make you really mad, and it shows you the corruption runs deep.
Yeah. Okay. So community, we have mentioned it, increased oxytocin. This is, it's called the love hormone, but it actually is shown to increase feelings of connection. It dampens your stress response. And I will say that in women, it has been known to increase libido. So
yeah, we use oxytocin in our practice for patients, especially seasonal depression. It works very well for that. Any type of mood disorder. Now, listen, we're not talking about major mood disorders that is going to be fixed by oxytocin. But if you feel like you're more snappy or on edge, it has been very beneficial for some of the patients that we've
seasonal affected disorders like the winter blues, it can help.
Or just stress.
Yeah.
I think it's a regulator.
That is something we do at Rixa Health. We've done that in different peptide visits. People have tried oxytocin with or without other supplements and lifestyle changes. Everything we do at Rixa Health involves lifestyle changes too. It's never just a pill for an ill.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this community, what being in the community or around loved one does, we mentioned increased oxytocin levels naturally, decreased cortisol, and reduced inflammatory cytokines. And we've gone over that at length. So,
and then the last one is purpose. Why do you wake up in the morning? That is purpose. A consistent sense of meaning anchors behavior and that resilience.
You know, this is kind of big, I think, sometimes in the United States. A lot of people talk about this midlife crisis, and I think it's just more as you get older and you start to reflect, like, what am I doing? Like going to work every day. What am I contributing? What do I do? And this is not meant to make anybody feel bad about that or like make you, oh my God, this is an existential crisis. But think about like what can be purpose outside of your job? What can be purpose to your family? Maybe your kids are grown and they don't live in your house anymore. And you're like, well, I'm not raising kids anymore. They don't need me. I feel sad about it. Mm-hmm. What's the next stage? How do you connect with them in this phase of their life? Other family members that maybe you didn't have time for while you were raising kids, friends. I mean, networking, like, look how many people get into so many cool things in their community once they're done raising kids. So I really encourage you to think about it. What is your purpose? What does motivate you? What makes you happy and drives you?
And if you don't feel like you have a purpose, then I highly suggest that you go and do something for somebody else because that will make you feel so much better. I see this on, when I have my rewarding visits, when I'm spending that one-on-one time with my kiddos, like that's where my purpose lies, is hopefully changing the health industry and then raising my kids to be good kids. And that's, I feel like, your drive. So if you feel like you're, bored or like Tim said, your kids are out of the house and you're like, what do I do now? Go serve the community, go give something back to somebody and change somebody else's life and it will change yours.
Yep. And we're going to kind of rehash this as we finish up this podcast shortly, but think about some of the modern problems that we face. A lot of the blue zones are not facing, and we can correct some of these, but ultra processed foods, they're hyper palatable, but they're inflammatory. They disrupt your fullness signaling. They lead to increased leptin resistance. Blue light. We have so much blue light in our culture, especially at night. This suppresses melatonin and disrupts your circadian rhythms, screws up sleep. We have a whole podcast episode on sleep. I cannot stress how important sleep is.
And we get it. Sometimes you have to be on your laptop late at night. I will be the first to tell you that I do this, but I have Blu-ray blocking glasses that I will do this, or blue light blocking glasses. And my other ones that I have that I don't wear when we're filming is they look like really dark like Ambien sunglasses, and they are like my screen, everything is a dark, deep color.
And that's still not an excuse. Like you can do it better. That's a way of doing it better, but I still yell at her, terrible. Come on, let's turn our electronics off. Let's go to bed,
But
and I do it sometimes too. Yeah, we work too much.
I have to wear these glasses because my eyeballs will fall out.
We're stuck in a chronic stress loop in the United States and in our culture. Constant inputs keep our HPA axis activated, disrupted, and we're always wired and tired. And we do have more of a sedentary lifestyle unless you really try, or your job is not sedentary.
Yep.
So that leads to the physiologic mismatch, and we've talked about it, but high cortisol levels all day, decreased melatonin at night. We see more insulin resistance at younger ages than anywhere else in the world. And then if you could dive into everyone magic school bus style and see their mitochondrial, we'd see they're small, we're inefficient, we produce a lot of exhaust. We take a lot of resources. We're not making a ton of energy.
That'd
So,
be so cool. A real life magic school bus.
oh my gosh,
That
I
would be
can't even tell you
wild.
how much like that
Maybe
would be
one
cool
day
to me.
that'll eventually happen, but that would be so cool.
Okay, so let's kind of real quick, how do we do this anywhere? We've kind of mentioned it as we go. I'm sure you can kind of put together what we've said, but let's just run through it for our audience real quick. Let's make it easy.
Recap: diet, protein forward, and this is not those candy bars that are protein labels,
Yeah. Oh my God, I have seen so many people talking about this David bar lately. You guys, David bar is garbage. Look at the ingredients. There's
never
like
heard of it.
40 ingredients on the back there. It's horrible, awful, god awful, terrible. Anyway,
So protein,
Protein
forward,
forward.
these are whether that's your animal sources or your plant sources, the less processed the better. If it's going to expire in a week or so, you're good. If it lasts on long shelf life, not good unless it's like your chopsticks. Those are usually okay. Whole foods, avoid seed oils, refined carbs, all the things.
emulsifiers, binders, preservatives, movement. Guys, walk every day. Lift weights, please. Lift weights. Lift heavy shit, okay? To your capacity. Please don't hurt yourself because Tim and Mia told you to do it. Start low, go slow,
Yeah,
but
we are not
challenge.
responsible for your
Yeah.
injuries.
But start low, go slow. Challenge your body though. You can't do the same 5-pound workout forever and think that you're going to get anywhere. You got to challenge your body. You got to move.
Yep, that progressive overload. Sleep, morning sunlight when it's actually springtime because it's freaking cold sometimes in Ohio, but we have a little gazebo. The sun shines right through. When I'm up at 6, when that sun is coming through, I'm out there with my coffee, sitting under the gazebo, watching my horses out in the pasture, responding to my natural daily circadian rhythm. It is amazing. I sleep better. My energy is better. It's more stabilized. Now, that might not be doable for some people. Get out, face the sun, even if it's just a couple minutes when you wake up before work, or if you're driving to work, having that sun exposure, or of course, mimicking like red light therapy.
Yep. Stress. Build in stillness in your day. Build in stress relief. What is it for you? Is it nature, prayer, meditation, guided meditation? Maybe you need 15 minutes of quiet time. I don't know what it looks like for you, but you have to actively reduce your stress. It's not going to do it unless you try. You have to be intentional about it.
And that's whatever's going to fix your stress, meaning whatever is your favorite thing to do, whether that's walking or a podcast and decompressing or whatever that is, you have to find whatever is going to decompress your stress. Unless it's alcohol, then don't do that.
This is a big one. Community, social relationships, family, friends, whatever it is, being involved, having a social network, you got to do it. You can't be the hermit that doesn't want to hang out with anybody. Expose yourself to new ideas, stimulating conversation, support when you need it. It is paper clinic research shown that it will help extend your health and your life. So please make a point to do it.
Yeah.
And we mentioned,
the what?
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to tell a story real quick because I had a follow-up patient the other day, and she was my very first follow-up. She was only 1 month in, and on our first meeting, when I was talking to her about, exercising and working out, she's like, I just don't work out. She goes, I have no desire to work out and go to the gym. She's like, I just never was a gym person, and that's not going to be me. And, you have to meet yourself where you're at. And if you don't want to go to the gym, that's also fine. But then my remedy to that was, okay, well, you have to do your things that are going to move your body, challenging yourself to do more activity. Whether that's a power clean of your entire house, wearing a weighted vest, so you're killing 2 birds in one stone, get it done. And I had a follow-up with her a couple days ago, and she said, I started mowing my grass, which is something I've never done like her entire life. And I'm like, that's movement, and you're pushing, and you're getting your legs in the ground, and it's basically, I think of it as what do they call it? The weighted sleds. And so I'm like, that is change. So when we say like work out and lift heavy things, we don't mean like pump and iron in the gym. Yes, that would be the easiest thing to do if you have access to that, but you can do that throughout your life of what you're doing. For example, mowing your grass. Just be more active in whatever you do.
Agreed. And then purpose. We mentioned this. This is kind of common throughout the Blue Zones. There is a deeper purpose for people there, whether it's community, family, whatever it might be, there is purpose. So find your purpose, find your why.
And then you can add some biomarkers, especially if you're seeing somebody, even if it's your PCP or
Yeah,
somebody like
just
us,
some things to make sure you're
making
watching,
sure-
right?
Yes, because remember, any of these biomarkers that are abnormal, maybe it's a high fasting insulin, which your provider should be running. Bet you they're not. Maybe it's an abnormal triglyceride panel or a high sensitivity CRP
To
that's
measure your
level,
inflammation.
which is inflammation.
Or like
yeah.
actually getting thyroid testing to look at that. So not just a TSH, but saying, can we please check a free T3 and a free T4?
Yeah, and the moral of that is that everything that we just talked about can lower all all of your metabolic markers as well. They work in synchronously. So it just makes a massive difference that you know your markers, you know what we can do to, best decrease our risk for any of these further disease processes or correct the ones that we already have through diet and lifestyle. Now, yes, don't get me wrong, some medications and supplements can be life-changing for some, but that's not your one-way ticket for the rest of your life. Like, you are going to eat every day, you're going to move every day, you might as well eat the right things and move the right way.
Yep.
And that's all we can do.
We did a whole episode on it, but consider the different biomarker wearables.
Whoop bands and
Whoop band,
Oura
Oura Ring. It measures a lot of things, gives you a lot of good biometric feedback, really helps you sort of see what your body is doing and measure some of these things in real time, way more than a set of annual silly labs can ever do for you, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, you still need some annual labs, but most of the time I say we're not getting enough.
We are definitely not getting enough. Yep.
Okay, let's wrap it up. What the blue zones do not have, right?
Processed food.
Yes. A lot of endocrine disruptors. They don't, these guys aren't driving around with pine trees hanging from their car and Glade plugins in every wall in every room.
And sucking on a vape stick.
Yeah. So, and 24/7 stress, they don't have it. So those are some big things to keep in mind. How can you improve that wherever you live?
Quick myths. Don't blame it on genetics. That you need biohacks or it's just diet. It's everything at once that we can do. It's not just genetic. You don't
need every little $100 or $200 supplement in the world that's going to make you live longer.
Yep.
Right?
And so major takeaway here, longevity isn't built in the gym or in a supplement stack. It is built in your everyday routine, your environment, and just what you're doing every single day. And every single day is a day to change things, to decrease disease processes. And I say this very often, every single meal is either fuel or poison. And it'll either thrive in if it's good food, it'll decrease some of your disease risks, and if it's bad food, it's going to make all of those increased risks. So every single meal can be medicine if you allow it to be.
I agree, and I don't think that you need to move to Greece.
Although that'd be nice,
right?
But you just have to stop living like the modern American.
Agreed, and I think you will be much closer to a blue zone.
Yep. Remember, it is not if you eat the standard American diet. It is not if. It is when you will get standard American diseases. And if you follow these steps, you might just prevent them a little longer.
Let's fix it together.
All right.
Check us out, RixaHealth.com.
Yep, we have our supplements, our supplement line. We are taking new patients, and if there's anything that you can benefit from, like, share, follow.
Remember, though, you can't supplement your way out of bad health. While we tell you about it, we'd much rather help you change your lifestyle and use supplements if and when needed.
Remember, check out the link in the podcast show notes to get that form or
the phytonutrient spectrum.
The phytonutrients. Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you, guys. This podcast is for educational and conversational purposes only. It is not medical advice. It is not a replacement for personalized care, diagnosis, and or treatment. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making changes to your health, medications, or lifestyle. Our goal is to give you better questions, better understanding of disease, and more ownership of your health. Knowledge is power. We will see you guys next week.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you all next week. Please like, share, and follow.